I'm thinking Staples is the place for printing. I thought you might think that.
Right now at Staples, get up to $250 off your print purchase. N45 exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for offer details. Price match guarantee valid in store and staples.com/print. Visit staples.com/price match for details.
A new survey finds pets can teach us a lot about love.
An overwhelming number of pet parents believe their furry friends have the ability to exhibit love and have the capacity to love a human. The results of this month's Pollfish survey.
There is this deep connection between people and their animals. Some of the most reliable relationships that people have. They really matter to their sense of well-being every day.
Rover human-animal connection expert Phil Tedeschi.
When we look for social support, it doesn't only have to be human beings.
Stephen Kaufman, CBS News.
A surprise at Britain's top movie awards.
The BAFTA goes to Conclave.
People Thriller took top prize after losing out at all of the Oscars precursors so far. Best leading actor went to the brutalist Adrian Brody. Nora's Mikey Madison took leading actress for her mostly nude performance playing an exotic dancer. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
We could all use more time. Amazon Business offers smart business buying solutions so you can spend more time growing your business and less time doing the admin. I can see why they call it smart. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
Right now, get up to a $15 gift card after rebate when you purchase select Superstart batteries exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
For 70 years, we've been known as the Humane Society of the United States. But as the challenges animals face have grown, so have we. We are now called Humane World for Animals. And with you on our side, we are going to end animal cruelty around the globe. Join us. Humane World for Animals. The end of animal cruelty.
I am Charlotte Gardner.
Why do you love Adams Place?
Gee, there are so many things, but I guess the choices. You can be as lazy as you want to be. You can be as active as you want to be. The residents are friendly. The staff is wonderful. You don't need to be concerned at all. It's up to you.
Hi, this is Terry Deal at Adams Place. Call me for more information about Adams Place. Phone 615-904-9111.
Adams Place on Memorial across from Walmart.
Skies become mostly sunny here this afternoon with a high into the upper 30s. Tonight, mostly cloudy at a low near 24. By Tuesday, partial sunshine, high 42. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 25.
WGNS Murfreesboro, W270AF Murfreesboro, W263AI Murfreesboro, Smyrna. We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the WGNS Action Line, talking with Rutherford County newsmakers about what matters most to you. Now, your host, Scott Walker.
Right now that time, 8:17. Well, in studio with us today from MTSU, we have Dr. Katie Foss, director of the MTSU School of Journalism and Strategic Media and Media Studies as well. And I guess starting off, tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to this line of study.
Sure. So I'm a health communications scholar, the head of the Media Studies concentration, as well as you mentioned, the director of the School of Journalism and Strategic Media. And I've always been really interested in the history of medicine, especially medicine as it has been captured in various forms of media over time. One of my previous books, Constructing the Outbreak, Epidemics in Media and Collective Memory, looked at different epidemics throughout history. So when COVID happened, naturally, I was very interested in how it was unfolding in the moment, but also how it would be captured in media and how we might look back on this moment.
So when you look at medical news, health news being reported by media all across the country, how accurate is that information that's being released?
Well, first of all, it really depends on the source, but it also depends on the target audience. Is it local news? Is it more for a region or regional? Is it national? Is it international? And then we also have to evaluate information in its moment. So certainly as I was writing my book, looking at these different moments in time from December 2019 through, a couple years ago, we really had to look at, okay, what did we know in that moment and evaluate it for that moment and not as we would in hindsight or looking back on it.
What are some of the key things in the book you wrote regarding COVID, but what are some of the key things that really stand out to you?
One is just how the information about what we would later name COVID evolved. That really a lot was going on in terms of content sharing across international borders before the general public was really taking notice. And I'm talking especially about early January, mid-January. And then I was really interested at what point did we start to take notice? At what point are people talking about it on social media platforms? At what point are we starting to modify behavior? So that was one of the things I was really interested in. I was also really interested in kind of our shared experiences and also our contrasting experiences, especially in that shutdown period or lockdown period in March 2020, when you had the majority of people at home making bread, bored and just trying to fill their time. And then we also had, on the other hand, essential workers who are working so hard just to try to make everything a little better for everybody and just to try to make it through. So again, it was about shared but also very differentiating experiences.
How many weeks or months into COVID did it take for the general public to actually become alarmed by the whole thing?
It depends on where you look, right? And certainly the diffusion of information, Asia versus if we want to think about the United States, but it kind of ebbs and flows. So I would say the majority of people knew about it at the end of January, right? As far as alarmed about it, I would say the week of March 14th, thinking about it actually when Rutherford County schools first sent everybody home.
And when we started seeing people pass away because of problems dealing with COVID, I would guess that would be pretty alarming at the local level whenever that occurred.
I would say so. Although one thing that was different about COVID compared to epidemics and pandemics of the past is that because we knew about it for a long period of time, and certainly alarming, and in no way am I trying to say that we weren't alarmed, but it was a little bit different. And we heard the terms COVID fatigue, and absolutely that happened, meaning that we've been hearing about it for so long. It was a little bit harder to become or stay constantly alarmed unless we were personally affected, especially if we think about it over multiple years period of time.
Now, for those who had vacations planned, because I know that was a big issue, especially for those who were going on cruises, because there was a cruise ship that had to, just stay stationed out in the middle of the ocean.
Yes, so the Diamond Princess chapter was actually one of my favorite to write. And I really enjoyed looking at this moment day by day, contrasting the news coverage of the Diamond Princess while it was quarantined for a month compared to the social media content that the actual passengers were putting out from the ship. Certainly a devastating time period, but also very mundane for those on the ship. And I just found that absolutely fascinating.
If you're in a science lab and you take a petri dish and you put something in it to see if it grows, that's kind of like what occurred, I would guess, on that cruise ship, because it was just sitting out there with all the same passengers, and then it seems like the problem would only grow by leaving them on there.
Well, and it did, but they didn't think that would happen, which is one of the, I would say, the most terrifying things in the moment, but also one of the most interesting things kind of looking back on it, that here the Diamond Princess thought that they were doing everything they could, and the Princess Cruise Lines thought they were doing everything they could to protect passengers, but of course, crew members still had to work because people still needed to be fed, they needed their medication. And so the cases continued to rise even while they were on the ship, which is not something that they would have thought was going to happen.
I wonder now, looking back, if they think we did all the wrong things by leaving it just sitting out there.
Probably, but it's so hard to look back on a moment, especially while they were still trying to figure out what the virus even was and how it was transmitted. I know it's kind of a tough thing, but definitely made cruise lines, at least, and I would say other aspects of the travel industry, kind of consider having plans in place for when a crisis occurs.
Again, Dr. Katie Foss with us this morning. Now, what is the new book that you wrote called?
Capturing COVID, Media and the Pandemic in the Digital Era.
Have you found a lot of lawsuits relating to COVID pop up, or were you able to document things like that yet?
I would say we could do that. That wasn't really the focus of my book because I primarily looked at the early months of COVID and basically slices of time. And my argument is that many of the things that happened even before COVID was called COVID and we had declared the pandemic really set the stage for how it would unfold the rest of the time.
Would you find it interesting to write about things related to media in today's times? Because media has changed greatly over the last 15 to 20 years. I mean, over the last 5 years.
Yes, absolutely. And that was one reason why I wanted to focus on this digital era. It's so different than if we look at like influenza of 1918, which I studied in one of my previous books, in that it was much more straightforward. That what information were people getting? Well, we just look at the local and national newspapers day by day and can assume that most people got that content, and that's just not the case now.
Were there books written years ago that you know about that focused on media and media reporting, and have you looked at those to see the difference maybe from the 60s or the 50s even?
Absolutely, although I would say that in terms of media reporting of disease and outbreaks and epidemics and pandemics, much more has been written on earlier epidemics.
Interesting. Hey, what again made you want to head this direction and write about all this?
Actually, because in spring and fall of 2020, my book was getting ready to come out on epidemics and then came out, and I was doing so much writing and so much reflecting on the moment as an expert in this area that it really made me want to also preserve what we were talking about in that moment for future generations and to have something that really can solidify at least some of these experiences as covered in media.
From the outside looking in, the fascinating thing about COVID was that we even saw television shows, reality TV shows, dating shows focusing on the subject of COVID.
Yes. Yeah. And that's one reason I did a whole chapter on the pop culture aspect. And I would say that was also probably my second favorite chapter to write, was to look at how these different TV shows, first of all, of course, the entertainment industry was shut down. And so how did they start to reopen, and behind the scenes what happened? But then also looking at these different reality shows and then fictional narratives to see, did they write COVID into the storyline? And how do you do that, especially if you leave shows on a cliffhanger and everything gets shut down unexpectedly and then you start to reopen? Do you pick up where you left off and somehow try to resolve the cliffhanger? Or like some of them did, they just passed time really quickly in a montage and then jumped into COVID. Or like Grey's Anatomy wrote a whole season about COVID. And I found it just intriguing. How do you write that in? Does it make sense? Does it work? It doesn't always work. Or do you just completely ignore that the pandemic happened and continue your storyline kind of business as usual?
When you look back in history, I don't recall a TV show from, early ages of maybe even the 70s. But I don't recall TV shows. I don't recall newspaper dramas or books that focus on any type of outbreak that kept it going as in a series.
Yeah, especially for a full season. That was a bit much, I will say, for Grey's Anatomy, and to write it in. So we've seen like medical dramas especially that have written in maybe an episode that kind of references some outbreaks or kind of the what if, right? But to actually have it go on multiple episodes or a season was really unusual.
It'd be like writing malaria into a whole season of shows if you had TV back then. It's just strange.
And I think that at least for some viewers, it was a bit much based on reviews and what fans said, especially with shows that wrote the season about COVID.
And for the audience, I'm sure they're trying to get away from the thought process of this lingering COVID that's just hanging around and not going away. I mean, you want to almost get out of that feeling and go into some other place.
Right. And that's one thing that I explored is that when they made these decisions, so the production team and the writers made these decisions for these TV shows, do you ignore COVID because nobody wants to talk about it and you actually want to move beyond feeling like this and thinking about this and you want to enjoy your favorite characters as they were before this all happened? Or the flip side is, okay, we're experiencing this in real life, so we can identify with characters' experience. And I think it can work both ways, and it depends on the show and the viewer as well.
There are probably millions of bloggers out there who write something new about their life or the life surrounding them every single day. What were they doing during this time of COVID?
Actually, I would say that the biggest thing that people were doing they were creating content or activities for other people to do. So that's definitely something that we saw in, I would say, late March, when nobody was in school or very few people were in school, was creating content for other people to do, like activities like, okay, you could do this craft, or I'm going to do a live stream of, I have a friend here who's a local baker, Sam Boffin, who did a series on cooking and a Facebook series in which you could watch her and learn how to make cinnamon rolls. So we saw a lot of that, like really those mundane activities to help give other people things to do, especially with kids, which I think that was actually one of the positives, was finding ways to connect as a community when you couldn't be together.
Years from now, how do you think COVID will be interpreted or represented in museums? Like, let's say the Smithsonian, if they were to do some type of a display on COVID, how do you think that's going to come out like 50 to 100 years from now?
Well, if we take a page from how influenza or the Spanish flu, and I'm air quoting that because, of course, it did not start in Spain. If we're looking at that, largely downplayed because I think people want to forget. I think that that's one thing that happens with kind of these really intense, long, hard moments. I would imagine we would see some stuff like perhaps masks or some of the lingo that we developed, like social distancing. Maybe some of that is captured, but I think in general, outbreaks and epidemics and pandemics are hard to capture and hard to preserve in our history, but very important to do so.
And how can people get a hold of this book?
Sure. So it's available on Amazon. It's also available through the University of Massachusetts Press site. And if you use the coupon code UMass20, you can actually get 20% off. It's also available in Barnes & Noble online.
Okay. And again, it's titled Capturing COVID. And then media, right?
Media and the Pandemic and the Digital Era.
Sounds good. Again, Dr. Katie Foss with us today, Director of MTSU School of Journalism and Strategic Media and Media Studies. And you're a professor as well.
I am.
So
yes.
You, I guess during COVID, what happened in your classes?
Well, MTSU went all online in spring 2020, which was really important that we did that. And then we had the option to go back in the fall, which I did, and it was an unusual time. And I actually wrote a little bit about that in my book in the foreword, how this experience was weird for me too, right? And just taught in the ballroom with chairs spread out, which was very different. But I really liked being back in the classroom because I love teaching, and I especially love teaching in person.
Definitely. Again, Dr. Katie Foss with us this morning. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Right now, that time is 8:31. You're tuned to WGNS, and we appreciate you tuning in, but we have more coming your way in just a minute on WGNS. Again, the time right now, 8:31.
This is Peter Demas, inviting you to enjoy a meal with our family at Demas's Restaurant. With cold and flu season here, nothing helps my family more than having the Demas's baked chicken and rice soup. It was a soup that was created by my grandmother, and we not only sell it by the cup, but we also sell it by the quart, by the half gallon, and by the gallon. So stop by anytime today and bring soup to your family that may be sick, or a friend that's sick, or just to enjoy it just because it tastes so good. Demas's Restaurant.
Here at Animal City in Murfreesboro, we are your go-to for everything cold-blooded. Whether it's geckos or snakes or tortoises, we've got a great selection. Plus, we've got all the tanks, lighting, and food to set up the perfect habitat. If you're not sure where to start, don't worry. Our team knows reptiles and can help you every step of the way. Come see us at 919 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6, and Sunday from 1 to 5. Find us anytime on Instagram at Animal City TN.
CBS News Brief. U.S. and Russian officials will hold talks in Saudi Arabia tomorrow on ending the war in Ukraine. The BBC's Steve Rosenberg.
Russia's delegation will include the Kremlin's foreign policy advisor Yuri Ushakov and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Today, Mr. Lavrov appeared to suggest that Europe had no role to play at future peace talks.
Thousands more federal workers fired over the weekend. Chelsea Milburn lost her job at the Department of Education.
I'd say the last couple of weeks, there was a lot of stress, fear, and tension.
At least one death in Georgia and 9 in Kentucky are blamed on severe rainstorms that have triggered catastrophic flooding. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear tells CBS Mornings.
We still have some rescue operations that will need to occur today, potentially evacuating an apartment complex.
At least 16,000 people have no power or heat as temperatures in the South dip below freezing. CBS News Brief. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
What I like to think about Adams Place is it's sort of a pipeline.
Alan Butcher.
You enter in at the independent living end of it, and you go as far as you can. It just happens that my wife is in the memory unit, so I'm able to go over and see her each day, and that works out real well.
Hi, this is Terry Deal at Adams Place. Call me for more information about Adams Place. Phone 615-904-9111.
Adams Place on Memorial across from Walmart.
Skies become mostly sunny here this afternoon with a high into the upper 30s. Tonight, mostly cloudy at a low near 24. By Tuesday, partial sunshine, high 42. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 25.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Right now that time, 8:34, you're tuned to WGNS, again on this Monday morning. And now in studio with us, also from MTSU, Dr. Megan Wifley. And did I say your last name correct?
Yep, you sure did.
And you are with the June Anderson Center for Women and Non-Traditional Students, and you are the director.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that department.
Yeah, so that department serves all female identifying students as well as all non-traditional students. So for MTSU, that's anybody over the age of 25 or married, widowed, divorced, or a parent or caregiver, or goes to school part-time, works full-time, or current or former military. So we really do serve everybody on campus.
And some big events are coming up, I believe, starting March the 3rd. What are all of the events that are right around the corner?
Yeah, so Women's History Month is coming up, obviously March of every year. So we have a ton of different events going on. We'll start off with a chemistry speaker through the chemistry department, and we'll kind of move through the month. We are talking this month about zero textbook costs because it is also Zero Textbook Cost Month, so that's free and low-cost textbooks to students. We have a choral concert, the Shaking It Up political documentary, several other documentaries. So one is Benevolence, A Journey from Prison to Home. Just added on Friday, actually, the Center for Popular Music is going to do a Billie Eilish listening party, a women's poetry reading. My office does a board and brush where you can come paint a slogan or a saying. One of the graduate students is going to talk about maternal mortality. One of our professors, Christina Cobb, is going to do an Empower Her event called Writing Her Story. That's how to express your thoughts and feelings through writing. Our events out of our office as well, out of our committee as well, is the Women's Celebration Dinner. That is the large event of the month. And that's going to be a dinner, networking, a speaker, a highlight speaker, and that's Amanda Nachman. She is the CEO of College Magazine, and then our Trailblazer Awards. And so we really are combining a couple of our previously larger events into one huge bash. And then the last thing of the month is going to be a roundtable discussion that we call the MTSU Women's Collective, and that's women and allies coming and talking to each other about what's going on around campus, women-centered.
Now, each year the events are always different. What goes into actually planning these and deciding who to invite?
Oh my gosh. So I literally get a hold of the National Women's History Alliance because they set the theme for every year. Now, obviously, universities don't have to use that, but we do. And so this year, the theme is moving forward together, and it's educating and inspiring. And so what my committee does is we sit down and we talk about what type of events we want to have and then who we want to invite. One of the big things this year is students really got into my ear and they said, we don't want that typical 1 hour keynote speaker, long and boring. And I said, all right, let's do it. What do you want? And they wanted us to expand the awards. They wanted us to have networking. They wanted us to shorten that speaker, but it's more interactive. And so I'm really excited. I talked to Amanda a couple weeks ago. She's going to do a ton of different thought processes and talking about like your future and your journey and all of that. And it's really exciting. We've expanded our awards. We typically do professional trailblazers and student trailblazers, but we've expanded that. This year we went to one faculty, one staff, 1 alumni, 1 community member, 1 student, and 1 student organization. And we had nominations in all of those categories, which was great since those are all new.
You know, we've seen speaking engagements of public speakers change all over the country at events.
We have.
And I think in general, everybody's mindset, well, they want to get stuff in shorter sound bites.
Yep. That's why we're going to a 30-minute speaker this year, and then adding that nice dinner, the networking, the piece the students really are interested in is that networking. So anybody who's coming, they will get a Women's History Month button with their label on it. So either faculty, staff, student, community member, etc. And then they're able to go around the 30 minutes before dinner starts and just talk to those that maybe they don't know, or maybe people that they don't normally get to see very often.
Has it been harder as the years go on to really grab the attention of students and just members of the community when planning these?
Yes, amazingly. And, you know, over the years, especially since COVID, and I know Katie was in here before, we have seen that decline in the people coming to those events, staying for those events. And, you know, we put a lot of thought and we put a lot of heart into these events. And so if that's not what our community wants, then I definitely want to pivot and do something different. And already I'm super excited. We have over 125 people signed up for the dinner. I do need to have any additional people sign up by the end of this week so I can get our food numbers into catering. But it is open, free to the public, free to students, faculty, staff, etc. So if anybody's still interested in coming, they can get a hold of me.
Do you start planning next year's event during this year's event?
Not yet. I usually wait until summer when that National Women's History Alliance puts out the theme. It's a little hard to start planning some stuff. However, I did just put in my dates already for next year's dinner. So,
what are some things that stand out to you, you know, as you're planning this year's, because I'm sure you're you're talking to different guest speakers. What are some things that stand out to you in different conversations?
Yeah, so I always get really excited about people who are excited to come here. You know, there are the people who speak just to speak, but then there are people who really want to speak to engage with our students, and that is my number one priority. So Amanda herself, I offered her, I'm like, you don't have to network if you don't want to. You don't have to come to dinner. I'll get you a dinner in our green room. And she's like, nope, I want to do all of it. I want to be there. And she's doing a book signing afterwards. So a meet and greet, and anybody who wants to buy her book, it should be available in Phillips Bookstore beforehand, as well as night of.
Now, how many years have you been a part of planning this?
So I have been in the Women's Center for since 2019. Well, I started technically in 2020, but 2019, the person in this position was on her way to another job. And so my current boss, approached me and asked if I'd plan Women's History Month. So I've been planning Women's History Month since before I got this job. So 2020, 6 weeks before COVID is when I started this job.
Hey, have you got any past stories of guest speakers who maybe stood out to you for one reason or another?
So prior to doing this job, we had Salinas Leyva from Orange is the New Black. That was super fun. You know, that show was very popular. So that was really interesting. Mary Frances Berry, we tried to get her in 2020 and obviously couldn't have events on campus, so we called her back for 2021. She was so nice, and we had to do that one by Zoom that year. So great. Nancy Giles, a couple years ago, she was just so full of life, and she was from the TV show China Beach and several other different TV shows. And then last year, Rebecca Tausig, and she was a disabled person who did our speech last year, and she was just so gracious and met a lot of our disabled students who came that night, and they just really connected. And I know that at the end of the night, they got each other's Instagram and all of that. And so those are the things that really stick out, is when those people really reach our students.
How do students and different people who attend this event usually leave? Are they motivated? What are they motivated to do? But what do you see from people when they do leave these events?
Yeah, the ones I talk to are always really excited. You know, I'm running around those evenings and stuff, but they always stop me and, hey, this was great. Hey, this was perfect. You know, if previously to doing the dinner, I always did like a little reception afterwards. So people who came to the reception would always stop me and tell me, you know, how much they enjoyed the event or specific things they got out of the particular speech.
Again, Dr. Megan Whiffley with us this morning from the June Anderson Center for Women and Non-Traditional Students. Again, tell us a little bit more about that department and what all that entails.
Yeah, so our office is really a resource center. What we do is we do a lot of events like Women's History Month, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Then we do things for our non-traditional students. So those are our parenting students. We just created a partnership with the Nashville Diaper Connection where 20 of our student families are getting up to 200 diapers a month. We are working with a lot of other areas. We help several of our students afford childcare. We know that our students, especially anybody coming back to school full-time, they can't do their own childcare, so then they do hire out. So we've got money for that. We have tons of scholarships for MTSU students who've been away from school for several years and are coming back to come to campus for a bachelor's degree. So we do a lot of different things, and then we're there for them. We do a lot of fun things. So like the craft night there, the craft afternoon that we're doing, we do that every month with a different thing. So this next week we're making fabric coasters, and in April for Earth Day, we're planting succulents. So we do a lot of community building, getting people to know each other, and really just showing them that there are people on campus who care for them.
Things have changed a lot over the years, and I just looking at past news stories and stuff, it just seems like there's a lot that is happening locally, nationally, and around the globe, really involving women and how they're speaking out in different countries for different rights that they already have here. But what do you hear from students when it comes to those foreign countries where women may just be moving ahead in a lot of ways?
Yeah, we actually have a lot of international students on our campus that come to MTSU in order to get their career off the ground. And so I talk to a lot of those students, and they're very happy for that opportunity to be able to come here, be able to do things here in the United States that they maybe wouldn't have been able to do in their home country.
Things are a lot different in the U.S., and it's hard to believe in today's modern age, it's hard to believe that there are still things limiting certain groups of people in other countries.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to think about. And, when we do these roundtables and things, we like to hear from those students and faculty of what we could do better on campus and how we can help everybody, whether it be something like safety and security on campus or something as easy as free pads and tampons in women's restrooms and things like that. And we want to hear what struggles they're going through, because that's my time to then be able to assist whatever they need.
So when it comes to crime, sexual assault, rape, what do you hear from the general public, and what do you hear from different universities?
Yeah, luckily, I feel like MTSU is a very safe campus. We have our own domestic violence, sexual assault investigator on campus, Tommy Roberts. He and I work together really closely to do a lot of these things. But it's out there. It's out there everywhere. We do our best to train students in bystander intervention out of my office. We do, like I said, things for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We have a ton of events coming up next month. So really just getting people's mind on these things are happening and how to keep yourself and your friends safe.
And I'm sure there's a thin line of how do you let everybody know about these things that do happen without actually scaring them into who knows what. You don't want somebody too anxious.
And our MTSU police are amazing about putting out what needs to be put out, our campus, news media and everything, but also, like you said, not scaring people for things that they don't need to be scared about.
And again, this year's event is going to be in March, and it's part of National Women's History and the National Women's History Alliance. But what is the event again called? How do you get tickets, or how do you reserve a seat?
Yeah, so our main event is the Women's Celebration Dinner on March 5th from 5 to 7 in the Student Union Ballrooms. And people either need to go on our website. If they're MTSU affiliated, they can there's a link that says, click here to register, or they can email me at jacwns@mtsu.edu.
Sounds good. Again, Dr. Megan Whiffley with us this morning from MTSU. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Right now, that time, 8:47. Stay with us. We do have more news coming up.
Get old. Old National Bank, that is. Old National Bank has the experience and service you need to buy a home, make investments, even online and mobile banking. Old National Bank is in the borough on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
Old National Bank at 2230 Dr. MLK Jr. Boulevard, which used to be Mercury Boulevard.
Visit us and enjoy warm, homemade cookies at Old National Bank.
Old National Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Good morning. Wrapping up a couple of wrecks we had earlier over in the Antioch area. Normally it would be heavier than this with that traffic flow on 24 westbound up through Antioch coming in from Murfreesboro, Rutherford County. Still looks pretty good right now. It's been quiet. Coming through Hermitage, Donaldson on I-40 as you work your way towards downtown. Hey, whether you need a new roof repair, roof inspection, make sure you call Independent Roofing Specialist. Check out irsroofs.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Middle Tennessee football and basketball games are right here. This is Chip Walters on Rutherford County's Blue Raider Station.
MTSU Sports on WGNS. The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Right now that time, 8:49. Now in studio with us, we have Tom Coates, and he is the director for the MTSU Center for Professional Selling in the Jones College of Business. How are you this morning?
Oh, any better I'd be twins. How about you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about your background.
Oh, you got it. Well, first I have 25 plus years of professional selling. So they recruited me to be the first director of the sales program at MTSU. And which is so cool about this, less than 1% of universities in the country have a sales program. Fewer than that have the facilities that we have. We have a sales lab and a sales conference room all wired up for training. It's very cool. So I get to teach young people how to sell.
Now, how do you teach sales when all these people go off in different directions and are employed by different companies that sell different things?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. All right, sales is, if you follow the process, it doesn't matter what the product is. The process remains the same. Yeah, I could, like in my background, I have sold human resource support. I've also sold wide format engineering equipment and technology. I'm not a tech person. You don't want me to do your coding. Ones and zeros you don't want me to do. You do want me to tell your story. Yeah. And as a good sales guy knows how to tell the story and work the process.
Is that what it all boils down to, the story of a company or the story of a product?
It is. It absolutely. Listen. Well, first off, a salesperson needs to be nosy. They need to be curious about what's going on. They need to be able to listen. And then once they gather that information, they need to be able to compile a solution and tell the story of how you as the prospect can be the hero of this story with this solution. The sales guy should never be the hero. Always the prospect is the hero. You should always place them as the person using the solution that you propose to them. And then at the end of it, you see if that works for them. There's no magic words. There's no tricking. It's setting up a proposal to help you solve your problems or reach your goals.
Now, in this day and age, things are changing greatly and at rapid speeds. I mean, we're seeing AI everywhere, and we've got companies selling AI salespeople. I mean, it has changed a lot. But what would you say about these AI sales techniques?
I tell you, there has never been a greater demand for salespeople in the history. It's incredible. And AI is doing nothing but just make it more so. You've heard of business-to-business sales. You've heard of business-to-consumer sales, B2B, B2C. I've convicted in the belief that it's always H to H, human sales. There's always going to need to be a human in that story. And the decision maker is going to be a human. You could go online and order things that are transactional. That's fine. But the higher dollar, There's going to need to be a human being involved in that process. You could be an expert in a particular field and be replaced by AI. Because if you're an expert, AI can become an expert. But AI cannot become human. I asked AI this morning, I said, will you replace a sales guy? And it said not in the foreseeable future for AI to ever replace humans, because there are limitations on what technology can do, even in today's world.
And when you talk to students, what do you tell them as far as this computer age versus the need for human interaction with salespeople?
To leverage it as a tool. I was chatting this morning with a colleague that I remember. I graduated university before the internet. I remember the search bar. And everybody thought that, they'll never go back to the library. The world's going to come to an end because of the internet and the search bar. It did not come to an end. People still go to the library. Yeah, they use it for different ways. The library may be virtual sometimes, but it's still there. AI is just another tool. Let's learn a way to leverage that tool to succeed.
And where is the money in today's job market? Is it in sales more so than other more so than other areas?
Salespeople make above average income. It's very interesting. In our program, we have 100% job placement. My students, if you leave me without a job, which that has not happened yet, but if you leave me without a job, it's because you tried not to get a job. So you end up with a nice paying job. But the thing is that it's so crucial that we leverage and understand different policies and different types of jobs, different sales jobs. So you asked, where's the money? Is it in tech? Is it in healthcare? The answer is yes on all of that. We have, in our program, we have 21 corporate partners. And we have some that you and I would probably call blue-collar type businesses that, they're selling things that you work with your hand, you break a sweat doing. That type of sales. And certain students gravitate toward that sales, and they make six-figure incomes. Have others that want more of a technology sale. They gravitate to that. They make six-figure incomes. Healthcare, same thing. The jobs are there. It's what motivates you? What do you put together? So sales is not a one-trick pony where you do this one thing, you'll be successful. Sales is, I'm good at it. I'm good at sales. Let's go find where I can use my skill sets.
And what are some of the different jobs that folks are taking after they graduate through the program there at MTSU?
Oh, goodness. We can, for instance, I can certify a student as a professional selling student regardless of their degree. So I have students with concrete management, so there's folks in that industry. I think my favorite is equine science, and that's only because I could do the dad joke of we're not horsing around at MTSU. But I had this one kid, 4 years ago he graduated with an equine science degree. He now works for Novatech, which is a managed service provider over in Dallas. He became a sales guy to finance his horse habit.
Huh.
So, if you want to have horses, you either work in that industry or you make enough money to afford them.
Yeah, horses are expensive.
Yes, and so he makes six figures. So there's not a straight answer for that. That's also part of why I'm here today to talk about our professional selling masterclass. Jones College is committed to lifelong learning. We also know that sales is such a needed skill set out there, but so many people go into sales as plan B. They've never been properly trained. Most companies don't have the bandwidth to train people, And so you go out there in sales and you make sales, but you don't know why. Well, I like to teach them the process so that now, instead of just being unconsciously competent as a sales guy, you make sales, but you don't understand what happened. I want them to be consciously competent, so now they understand the sales process. If they can understand the sales process, find success, they can copy and paste that success for future endeavors. So that's the whole purpose of this class that we're teaching in March.
Again, with us this morning, Tom Coates from MTSU's Center for Professional Selling and the Jones College of Business. And if anybody wants to learn more information about this, what should they do?
Well, first off, they should go to the Jones College of Business Executive Training website. Later on this month, we have a class on leadership. In March, we're doing my class on professional selling. There's another one on data analytics. So we're offering classes for those people that are post-college. If you want to know about the Center for Professional Selling, you go to you search on the internet, MTSU Center for Professional Selling. You'll find our page there. My students are amazing. I would put my students up against any sales team in the country.
And again, Tom Coates with us. You can learn more by, I guess, just Googling Jones College of Business. Start there, and then executive education. Easy enough. Well, thank you for joining us this morning.
It's been my pleasure.
Right now, that time, 9 o'clock. You're tuned to WGNS. Coming up next, a look at the news through CBS Radio News and also local news from WGNS. Again, all comes your way next.
If you have something to buy, sell, or trade, call me. Weekday mornings at 7:50 for Swap and Shop.
WGNS, AM, FM, and online. Now an update from the WGNSradio.com News Center.
Tennessee residents should be reminded that the deadline to obtain a Real ID is fast approaching. Real ID cards will be required for domestic air travel and access to certain federal facilities. Tennessee began issuing Real IDs on July 1st, 2019, and residents who have renewed their driver's licenses since then may already have one.